Almost all disasters that we think about as emergency managers involve injury, illness, death, the destruction of property or the environment, or the disruption of critical services. Earthquakes, fires, floods. Can you think of a disaster that doesn't? Take a moment. As a university emergency manager, what comes to my mind is the spring of 2012 at the University of Pittsburgh, a university with over 35,000 students that employs 5,000 faculty and 7,000 staff. From February 13th through April 21st, 2012, Pitt received over 140 bomb threats. Some were communicated by phone, others by email. Some were even scrawled on the walls of buildings on campus. Those 140 bomb threats in that 10-week period necessitated over 120 evacuations of campus buildings. 120. There were middle-of-the-night evacuations when 5 or more residence halls received near simultaneous bomb threats, displacing students for hours at a time. Can you imagine what that felt like for those 10,000 students living in the residence halls and the thousands of others in university-owned apartments? They were scared, they were anxious, and they were tired of being woken up time and again in the middle of the night to evacuate. There were evacuations during classes, midterms, even during finals. Admittedly, usually something our students would find pretty amusing. But after a dozen, 2 dozen, 50+ evacuations, there was nothing funny about that situation. For their whole community, it must have been terrifying to go to school or work every day during that 10-week period and wonder if today a real bomb would detonate. Pitt, along with local law enforcement, the FBI, and the Department of Justice, took each and every bomb threat seriously. They rightfully determined that evacuations were the most prudent and appropriate approach. Fortunately, and that's clearly an understatement, not one threat turned out to be credible, but hindsight, of course, is always 20/20. As I followed that story in the news over the 10-week period, I couldn't help but wonder how this was affecting prospective students and their parents, and how it would impact future enrollment at Pitt. I wondered what would happen if students got together and demanded a refund for their spring tuition. For all universities, especially those of us that are tuition dependent, that's a very, very, very scary thought. Pitt was really backed into a corner. They couldn't just cut the semester short for all the obvious reasons, including the detrimental impacts it would have on their reputation and the potential for compromising their accreditation, which would have serious, long-lasting, and pervasive impacts on their students and on the whole university. Those 10 weeks at Pitt, those 140+ bomb threats, they were a disaster. No injury, no illness, no death, no destruction of property or the environment, and no disruption to critical services, but undeniably, they were a disaster for that university. When I started at Loyola Marymount University as the campus emergency manager, one of my first challenges was to define disaster for our higher education institution. Of course, I went straight to the Stafford Act as a starting point, and as we all know, the Stafford Act defines disaster with 16 man-made and natural catastrophes. Bomb threats? They aren't one of them. At universities, we think about those 16 catastrophes, but just given the very nature of who we are, what we do, our nuances, and the expectations of our community, we need to stretch our thinking a bit. We need to identify and work with our whole community and redefine disaster based on who we are. Ultimately, I've defined it as any incident that significantly compromises the safety, security, and well-being of campus constituents, academic and research programs, property or assets, the environment, the university's reputation, or university business. Another challenge I face, and something I work with every day, is to meet the expectations of our community. Many people liken universities to villages or small cities, and truly, in many ways, we are. In the government environment, when you think about getting those lifeline supplies out to an affected population after a disaster, we know that if you can do that within 24 hours, you're doing a heck of a job. At a university where students are paying $50,000 a year, 24 hours, it won't cut it. Most of our resident students are on their own for the first time in their lives, and we know that they and their parents expect that we will be there to provide them with their next meal and their very next drink of water. Their expectations for housing are immediate. We just don't have the luxury of 24 hours. And that motivates us to get creative and to identify strategies to meet those sky-high expectations. Let me be clear though, we completely recognize our dependency on our public and private partnerships and critical infrastructure and first responders. We couldn't do it without you. Those partnerships and resources are valuable to us beyond measure. Within the walls of our small city though, in the event of a disaster, we know that our community will expect that we will be there to provide them with resources that otherwise might not be available to the general public, be it water or food, or the ability to assess building safety for our residence halls. A whole host of things. On a related note, we need to meet the expectations of the university and truly live by our institution's mission. Cura Personalis, educating the whole person. It is an integral part of LMU's mission, and I'm going to just quote a small piece of it. It promotes formation of character and values, meaning and purpose. As students learn to read what is going on in their own lives and in the larger world, they are encouraged to grow in the skills of personal and social literacy needed for responsible citizenship. Of course, I focus my efforts on building and developing personal preparedness and campus readiness. But I also need to wholly adopt and integrate the university's mission in my work. And to that end, I strive to educate the whole person. I strive to impress upon our students the importance and relevance of preparedness, not just for themselves, but for their greater community. To capture the attention of our very busy students, we involve them in the planning and execution of our monthly preparedness campaign. One thing I've learned from our students loud and clear is that free food talks. Here are some pictures from our Resolve to Be Ready campaign, where students received a free slice of pizza for committing to one preparedness-related New Year's resolution. I have no shame if that's what it takes. At universities, we have the distinct honor of, in some small way, impacting our students and contributing to their growth towards responsible citizenship. We are working with the next generation of CEOs, politicians, business owners, community leaders, teachers, homemakers. If we can inspire these highly educated, talented, and motivated young people to think about preparedness and readiness now, our collective future will look even brighter as emergency managers to prepare for, respond to, mitigate, protect against, and prevent emergencies and disasters, not just at universities, but at the local, state, and federal levels. Working at a university has challenged me and inspired me to think well beyond the traditional lens of emergency management. Of course, I always leverage the foundation of my training and my master's degree, and absolutely my experiences as an emergency management coordinator for the city of Los Angeles. But working at a university has just opened my eyes to a new way of thinking and a new world of disasters like active shooters, sexual assault, and bomb threats. And for that, my experiences at Loyola Marymount University have absolutely made me a better emergency manager. Thank you.